The drone moved like nothing Do-Yin had ever seen. It darted left, then right, then up, changing direction so fast that his eyes could barely follow. Its shields pulsed with energy, ready to absorb any attack. The machine seemed almost alive, predicting threats before they happened. Do-Yin kept spinning the sling, watching, waiting. 45 seconds left. The crowd was silent now, all laughter forgotten. Even the aliens who had mocked him were leaning forward, curious despite themselves. This was not what they had expected. The human was not panicking. He was not firing wildly and missing. He was just spinning. Do-Yin's grandmother had taught him many things about the sling, but the most important lesson was patience. A rush throw was a missed throw. You had to wait for the right moment, the perfect moment, when everything aligned just right. He watched the drone's movements, looking for a pattern. Every machine had a pattern. It might be complicated. It might be subtle, but it was there. The drone's programming was designed to be unpredictable, to prevent targeting systems from locking on. But Do-Yin was not using a targeting system. He was using his eyes, his brain, his instincts, the same tools his ancestors had used to hunt animals on the plains of Earth. 30 seconds left. There. He saw it. The drone always paused for just a fraction of a second when it changed direction. A tiny hesitation, so small that a computer would dismiss it as irrelevant. But to a human eye, trained by a lifetime of watching and waiting, it was as clear as a beacon. Do-Yin adjusted his spin, matching the rhythm of his rotation to the rhythm of the drone's movement. 1, 2, 3. Pause. 1, 2, 3. Pause. 20 seconds left. He took a deep breath and let everything else fall away. The crowd disappeared. The arena disappeared. Even Instructor Velthos disappeared. There was only the sling in his hand, the bearing in the pouch, and the drone in the air. His grandmother's voice whispered in his memory, "Do not aim at where the target is. Aim at where it will be." 15 seconds left. The drone darted left, then right, then up. Do-Yin tracked its movement, counting the rhythm in his head. 1, 2, 3. Now, he released the sling. The steel bearing flew through the air in a perfect arc. It was not fast by galactic standards, barely 200 meters per second, a crawl compared to plasma bursts that traveled at the speed of light. Any standard targeting system would have seen it coming. But the drone shields were not standard shields. They had been designed to stop energy weapons, projectiles moving at incredible speeds, attacks that came too fast for biological reflexes to counter. The shield sensors detected threats by their energy signatures, their electromagnetic patterns, their quantum resonance. A steel ball bearing had none of those things. The drone sensors registered the incoming object, analyzed it, and classified it as debris. Harmless debris, probably a piece of dust or a small asteroid fragment that had somehow entered the arena. The shields did not activate. Why would they? It was just a rock. The bearing struck the drone's central sensor cluster with a sound like a gunshot. Crack. For a moment, nothing happened. The drone hung in the air, its lights still blinking, its shields still shimmering. Then, slowly, it began to wobble. Sparks flew from the impact point. Smoke curled into the air. The drone fell. It hit the arena floor with a crash that echoed through the entire dome, shattering into a dozen pieces of twisted metal and broken circuits. The lights in its sensors flickered once, twice, and then went dark. The arena was silent. Do-Yin stood alone in the center of the floor, the sling hanging loosely from his hand, staring at the destroyed drone. He had done it. He had actually done it. Then Kieran's voice cut through the silence, a high-pitched chirp of pure joy. Yes, the sound broke the spell. Suddenly, the arena erupted. Aliens jumped to their feet, shouting and clicking and howling in 100 different languages. Some were cheering. Some were protesting. Some were simply staring in disbelief at the impossible thing they had just witnessed. Gorval, the Threxian who had seemed so confident with his missile launcher, was standing with his mouth hanging open. "How?" he managed to say. "How is that possible?" Chidex, the insect creature, clicked its mandibles in what might have been appreciation. "The shields," it said slowly. "The shields did not recognize the projectile." "But that is absurd," Gorval protested. "It was just a rock. Rocks cannot destroy advanced technology." "Apparently," Chidex replied, "they can." Instructor Veltos walked slowly toward the wreckage of his drone. His expression was unreadable, his yellow eyes fixed on the smoking remains of a machine that had served him for 20 years. He knelt down and picked up a piece of the destroyed sensor cluster, turning it over in his massive hands. Do-hyun watched him, his heart still pounding, unsure of what would happen next. Had he broken some rule? Was he about to be expelled for destroying Academy property? Velthos stood up and turned to face him. The instructor's expression was strange, not angry, not disappointed, but something else entirely. It took Do-hyun a moment to recognize it because he had never seen it on an alien face before. Respect. "Park Do-hyuniverse," Velthos said, his voice cutting through the chaos of the crowd. "Explain what you just did." Do-hyun swallowed hard. "I threw a rock at it, sir. I saw what you did. I want to know how you knew it would work." All eyes turned to the small human in the center of the arena. Do-hyun felt the weight of their attention, the curiosity and skepticism of 100 alien species waiting to hear his answer. He thought about his grandmother, about the stories she had told him, about the lessons she had taught. He thought about David and Goliath, about shepherds and giants, about the long history of humans fighting against impossible odds. And then he began to speak. The arena was quiet now, every being waiting to hear what the human would say. Do-hyun looked around at the strange faces watching him, faces with too many eyes, or no eyes at all, or eyes made of crystal and fire. These were the most advanced species in the galaxy, and they were all waiting for him. He took a deep breath and began. "On my plan," he said, "there is a very old story. It is one of the oldest stories we have, passed down through thousands of generations. It is the story of a young boy named David and a giant warrior named Goliath." Velthos tilted his head, listening. Goliath was the greatest warrior of his people. He was enormous, taller and stronger than any normal man. He wore heavy armor and carried a massive sword. He was undefeated in battle. When he challenged the enemy army, no one would fight him. Everyone was afraid. Do-hyun walked slowly toward the destroyed drone as he spoke, his voice growing stronger. But then a young boy stepped forward. His name was David, and he was not a soldier. He was a shepherd, someone who watched over animals. He had no armor, no sword, no training. The giant laughed at him. Everyone laughed at him. He knelt down and picked up a piece of the shattered sensor cluster. But David had something the giant did not expect. He had a sling, just like this one. He held up his simple weapon, a tool that shepherds had used for centuries to protect their animals from wolves and lions. It was not made of advanced materials. It was just cord and leather and stones. The crowd was completely silent now, hanging on his every word. David put a stone in his sling and threw it. The stone flew through the air and hit Goliath in the forehead, the one part of his body that was not protected by armor. The giant fell, and David won. He stood up and faced Instructor Velthos directly. I knew the drone shields would not stop a simple projectile, because those shields were never designed to stop simple projectiles. They were built to counter plasma, lasers, magnetic ammunition, advanced weapons that leave energy signatures that can be detected and neutralized. But a rock? A rock is just a rock. It has no energy signature. It moves slowly. It is so primitive that the shields did not even recognize it as a threat. Velthos was staring at him with an expression Do-yoon could not read. Humans do not have claws, Do-yoon continued. We do not have scales or armor or natural weapons. We cannot breathe underwater or survive in the vacuum of space. By the standards of most species in this galaxy, we are weak, fragile, primitive. He paused, letting the word hang in the air. But we have been fighting things bigger and stronger than us for our entire existence. We fought animals with teeth and claws when all we had were sticks. We fought the cold and the heat and the hunger. We fought each other. And through all of that fighting, we learned something important. What did you learn? Velthos asked quietly. We learned that the old ways are not always wrong. We learned that simple solutions can defeat complex problems. We learned that strength is not everything. Understanding your enemy, finding their weakness, using their own assumptions against them. That is how humans survive. That is how humans win. He held up the sling once more. This weapon is over 10,000 years old. My grandmother taught me how to use it. Her grandmother taught her, and her grandmother before that. It has been passed down through my family for more generations than I can count. When I looked at your advanced drone with its advanced shields, I did not see an unbeatable machine. I saw a Goliath waiting for its David. The arena was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly Velthos began to clap. It was a strange sound. 4 hands coming together in a rhythm that echoed through the dome. One by one, other beings joined in, claws clicking, tentacles slapping, voices howling in approval. The sound grew and grew, until it was like thunder rolling through the arena. Du-hyan stood in the center of it all, exhausted and overwhelmed, but also proud. Prouder than he had ever been in his life. When the noise finally died down, Velthos stepped forward and placed one of his massive hands on Do-yoon's shoulder. The weight was enormous, but also somehow gentle. I have taught weapons engineering for 40 cycles, the instructor said. In that time, I have seen weapons that could destroy cities, weapons that could shatter moons, weapons that could tear holes in the fabric of space itself. I thought I understood what a weapon truly was. He looked down at the destroyed drone, then back at the human. I was wrong. A weapon is not about complexity. It is not about power. It is about understanding your tools, your enemy, yourself. You have reminded me of something I forgot a long time ago. Velthos released Do-yoon's shoulder and turned to address the crowd. Park Do-yoon of Earth will advance to tactical command training immediately. He will also join my staff as an assistant instructor. Murmurs of surprise rippled through the arena. Additionally, Velthos continued, next semester, I will be adding a new unit to my curriculum. I am calling it Primitive Weapons, Ancient Solutions for Modern Problems. Our human colleague will be teaching it. Do-yoon blinked in surprise. Sir, you have something to teach us, Velthos said simply. We would be fools not to learn. After the arena emptied, Do-yoon found himself standing alone on the testing floor. The cleaning robots had already cleared away the destroyed drone, leaving no trace of what had happened. But Do-yoon would remember. He would remember this moment for the rest of his life. Kieran found him there, still staring at the spot where the drone had fallen. You did it, she said softly. I did. How do you feel? He thought about it for a moment. Tired, happy, a little scared. Scared? Why? Because now they expect great things from me. He smiled, tucking the sling back into his pocket. I hope I can deliver. Kieran clicked her beak and bumped her wing against his shoulder. You will. I believe in you. They walked together toward the exit, 2 unlikely friends in a galaxy full of strange and wonderful things. Behind them, the arena lights dimmed, waiting for the next test, the next challenge, the next opportunity for someone to prove themselves, somewhere among the stars. Earth continued to spin, a small blue planet on the edge of known space. Its people were still learning their place in the galaxy, still proving that they belonged among the stars. They had no claws, no scales, no natural weapons, but they had their minds. They had their history. They had 10,000 years of fighting against impossible odds and winning. And, as Do-hyun walked through the corridors of the academy, he carried all of that with him in his heart, in his hands, and in the simple leather sling that had changed everything. His grandmother had been right all along. The oldest weapons were the oldest for a reason. They worked.
The space station called Helix 7 floated in the darkness between three suns. It was huge, bigger than most cities on Earth, and it was home to the most famous military academy in the galaxy. Students came from 100 different worlds to learn how to fight, how to lead, and how to win wars. The academy had been running for over 2,000 years, and in all that time, only the best of the best had walked its halls. Park Do-hyun was not supposed to be here. He was human, which meant he was from Earth, a small blue planet on the edge of known space. Humans had only joined the galactic community 50 years ago, and most alien species still thought of them as children. Weak children, at that. Humans had no claws, no natural armor, no ability to breathe underwater or survive in vacuum. They were soft and slow and broke easily. But Do-hyun had passed the entrance tests, just barely. And now he sat in the back of a classroom filled with beings that could kill him with a single blow. The classroom was large and round, with seats rising up like a theater. Strange lights floated near the ceiling, adjusting themselves to help each species see properly. Some students needed ultraviolet light. Others needed heat lamps. Do-hyun just needed regular light, which made him feel even more ordinary. In front of him sat a creature that looked like a giant insect, with 6 arms and eyes that never blinked. To his left was something that resembled a walking tree, its bark-like skin covered in glowing symbols. Behind him, a being made entirely of gas floated in a special containment suit, whispering to itself in a language that sounded like wind. And at the front of the class stood Instructor V. Elthos. That V. Elthos was a Kethrani, a species known for their warrior traditions and their complete lack of patience. He stood nearly 3 meters tall, with 4 muscular arms and scales that shone like polished copper. His eyes were yellow and cold, and when he spoke, his voice rumbled like distant thunder. "Today," Velthos announced, "you will prove that you deserve to be in this academy." The room went silent. Even the gas creature stopped whispering. "Weapons engineering is not about building the biggest gun or the most powerful bomb," the instructor continued. "It is about understanding. Understanding your tools. Understanding your enemy. Understanding yourself." He pressed a button on his wrist, and a drone rose up beside him. It was sleek and black, about the size of a human head, with sensors blinking red and blue. It moved smoothly through the air, almost like it was alive. "This is a Mark 7 combat drone," Velthos said. "It has shields rated for plasma bursts. It can dodge projectiles moving at half the speed of light. It has been used in 17 major wars and has never been destroyed by a student in this academy." He let that sink in for a moment. "Your assignment is simple. You have 6 hours to build a ranged weapon using only materials from the fabrication bay. Tomorrow you will demonstrate your weapons. The top performers will advance to tactical command training. The rest will repeat this course." The alien students immediately began talking among themselves, their voices mixing into a strange symphony of clicks, hums, and growls. Do-hyun could see the excitement on their faces, or what passed for faces. They were already planning, already thinking about plasma coils and magnetic accelerators. A soft clicking sound came from beside him, and Do-hyun turned to see his only friend in the class. Her name was Kiran, and she was an Alith, a species that looked like a mix between a bird and a human. She had bright blue feathers, large golden eyes, and a sharp beak that clipped when she was worried. "What will you build?" Kieran asked quietly. Do-Yun shrugged. "I am not sure yet." "You should build something impressive," she said. "The others already think humans do not belong here. If you fail this test, they will never respect you." "I know." The class was dismissed, and students rushed toward the fabrication bay. It was a massive room filled with raw materials and advanced tools. There were plasma generators, magnetic coils, photon emitters, and hundreds of other components that Do-Yun barely understood. The alien students grabbed everything they could, their claws and tentacles moving with practiced speed. Do-Yun walked slowly through the chaos, looking at the materials but not touching them. He knew he could not compete with these beings on their own terms. They had been building advanced technology since before humans had discovered fire. If he tried to build a plasma gun, it would be the worst plasma gun in the room. He needed to think differently. In the corner of the fabrication bay, there was a bin filled with scraps, broken parts. Failed experiments, things that nobody wanted. Do-Yun walked over and started digging through it. He found pieces of cord, some leather patches, small metal balls, and other simple items. An idea began to form in his mind. He thought about his grandmother, who had raised him on a farming colony in the outer reaches. She was old and traditional, and she had taught him many things that people on Earth had forgotten. She had taught him how to start fires without machines, how to track animals through the forest, and how to make tools from nothing. She had also taught him about the sling. A sling? He whispered to himself. Could it work? He picked up a length of strong cord and a small leather pouch. The materials were simple, almost laughably simple compared to what the other students were using. But Do-Yun remembered what his grandmother had told him. "The oldest weapons are the oldest for a reason," she used to say. "They work." He stuffed the materials into his bag and left the fabrication bay. The other students did not even notice him go. They were too busy building their advanced weapons, arguing about power outputs and targeting systems. Back in his small room, Do-Yun sat on the floor and began to work. He braided the cord carefully, making sure each strand was tight and strong. He shaped the leather pouch, testing its size and flexibility. The work was slow and quiet, nothing like the noise and chaos of the fabrication bay. His roommate, Morith, watched him with confusion. Morith was a crystalline being, his body made of living rock that sparkled in the light. He was not unkind, but he did not understand humans at all. "What is that?" Morith asked. "A sling," Do-Yun replied. "What does it do?" "It throws stones." Morith was silent for a long moment. Then he made a sound that might have been a laugh. "You are joking." "No." "Do-Yun, the instructor's drone has shields that can stop plasma. How will a stone help you?" Do-Yun looked up from his work and smiled. "We will see tomorrow." He worked through the night, not building, but remembering. His hands moved on their own, guided by lessons learned long ago on a dusty farm beneath unfamiliar stars. And somewhere in the back of his mind, he heard his grandmother's voice, gentle and sure. "Never fight strength with strength, little one. Fight smart. Fight different. Fight like a human." Tomorrow, he would show them what that meant. The night on Helix 7 was artificial, just like everything else on the station. The lights dimmed at certain hours to help the students sleep, but true darkness never came. There was always a soft glow somewhere, always the hum of machines keeping everyone alive in the cold emptiness of space. Do-Yun could not sleep. He lay on his small bed, staring at the ceiling, holding the finished sling in his hands. It was such a simple thing. 2 cords of braided fiber, each about as long as his arm, connected to a small leather pouch in the middle. His grandmother would have been proud of the craftsmanship. The other students would laugh at it. Morith was already asleep, his crystalline body making soft chiming sounds as he breathed. The sound was actually quite peaceful, like distant wind chimes. But tonight it only reminded Do-yoon of how different he was from everyone else on this station. He got up quietly and left the room. The station's corridors were mostly empty at this hour, lit by strips of soft blue light along the floors. Do-hyun walked without a destination in mind, just needing to move, needing to think. His footsteps echoed against the metal walls, the only sound in the sleeping station. He found himself at the observation deck, a large room with windows that looked out into space. The 3 suns of the system were visible from here, burning in the distance like angry eyes. Between them, millions of stars sparkled against the infinite black. Do-hyun stood at the window and thought about Earth. He had only been there once, when he was very young. His family had moved to the outer reaches when he was just a baby, chasing work and opportunity on the colony worlds. But his grandmother had been born on Earth in a country called Korea, and she had never let him forget where they came from. Our ancestors were farmers and warriors, she used to tell him. They fought with what they had. When they had nothing, they used their hands. When they had stones, they threw them. When they had sticks, they became spears. This is what humans do. We adapt. We survive. She had died 3 years ago on that dusty colony world, surrounded by the crops she had spent her life growing. Do-hyun had held her hand at the end, and she had smiled at him with those tired, kind eyes. "You are going to do great things," she had whispered. "I can feel it. Just remember who you are. Remember where you come from." He touched the sling in his pocket and made a decision. The cargo bay was at the bottom of the station, a massive space filled with shipping containers and equipment. It was supposed to be off limits to students at night, but Do-yoon had learned long ago that most rules were just suggestions if you were quiet enough. The bay was dark and empty, perfect for what he needed. He found an open area between the containers, about 50 meters long, and set up a target at the far end. It was just a piece of cloth tied to a metal pole, nothing fancy, but it would do. He reached into his pocket and pulled out one of the steel ball bearings he had taken from the fabrication bay. They were small, about the size of his thumbnail, but heavy. Heavier than the stones his grandmother had taught him to use, which meant they would hit harder. Do-hyun loaded the bearing into the sling's pouch and took a deep breath. The motion came back to him like an old friend. He held one cord in his hand, let the pouch hang down, and began to spin. The sling made a soft whistling sound as it cut through the air, once, twice, 3 times. On the 4th rotation, he released. The bearing flew through the darkness and missed the target by at least 2 meters. Do-hyun sighed. Out of practice, he muttered to himself. He loaded another bearing and tried again. This time, he focused on his breathing, on the rhythm of the spin, on the exact moment of release. The bearing flew and hit the container behind the target with a loud clang. Better, but not good enough. He practiced for hours, throwing bearing after bearing at the target. His arm began to ache, then burn, then go numb. Sweat dripped down his face despite the station's cool air. But slowly, steadily, his aim improved. By the time the artificial dawn began to brighten the station, Do-hyun was hitting the target 9 times out of 10. Not perfect, but close. Close enough, maybe. He gathered the scattered bearings and headed back to his room, exhaustion pulling at every muscle in his body. The corridors were starting to fill with students now, aliens of every shape and size preparing for the day ahead. A few of them glanced at Do-hyun as he passed, their expressions ranging from curiosity to contempt. He ignored them all. In the common room outside his quarters, he found Kiran waiting for him. The Aleph looked worried, her feathers ruffled and her golden eyes wide. "Where have you been?" she asked. "I came to check on you, and you were gone." "Practicing," Do-hyun said simply. "Practicing what?" "Your string weapon?" "It is called a sling." Kiran clicked her beak nervously. Do-yun, I am your friend, so I must be honest with you. I saw what the other students built. Gorval made a missile launcher. Thesa made a plasma rifle that can punch through starship armor. Even the gas creature made some kind of sonic weapon. And you have string and rocks. She lowered her voice. I do not want to see you humiliated. Maybe you could pretend to be sick. Ask to take the test another day. Do-hyun smiled at her, touched by her concern. Kiran, do you know the story of David and Goliath? I do not know these names. It is an old Earth story. Very old, from before humans even had writing. He sat down on a nearby bench, and Kiran sat beside him. There was a war between two groups of people. One side had a giant warrior named Goliath. He was huge and strong and covered in armor. No one could defeat him. What happened? A young boy named David came forward to fight him. He was just a shepherd, someone who watched over animals. He had no armor, no sword, no training. But he had a sling. Kiran's eyes widened slightly. The same weapon you built? The same. David put a stone in his sling, spun it around, and hit Goliath right in the forehead. The giant fell, and David won. That is a nice story, Kiran said carefully. But this is not a story. This is real. The instructor's drone is not going to stand still and let you hit it. I know. Do-hyun stood up and stretched his tired muscles. But the story is not about standing still. It is about understanding your enemy. Goliath expected to fight another warrior with swords. He did not expect a stone flying at his head. His armor was designed to stop blades, not rocks. You think the drone's shields are designed to stop plasma and lasers and magnetic projectiles, Do-hyun finished. Things that move at incredible speeds. Things that have energy signatures the shields can detect. And a stone? A stone is just a stone. It has no energy signature. It moves slowly compared to light. The shields might not even recognize it as a threat. Kiran was quiet for a long moment, processing this information. Then, slowly, her beak curved into something that might have been a smile. You are either very smart or very stupid, she said. My grandmother said those are often the same thing. The announcement system crackled to life, calling all weapons engineering students to the testing arena. Do-hyun took a deep breath and touched the sling in his pocket one more time. Today, he would find out which one he was. The testing arena was the largest room Do-hyun had ever seen. It was built at the very center of Helix 7, a massive dome that could simulate any environment from any planet. Right now, it was set to neutral gray walls, white lights, and a floor that stretched out like an endless plain. Seats rose up around the arena in rings, filled with students who had come to watch. This test was famous throughout the academy, a chance to see the future warriors of the galaxy show off their creations. Some students had brought food and drinks, treating it like entertainment. Others took notes, studying the weapons for their own future designs. Do-hyun sat in the waiting area with the other students from his class. They were arranged in alphabetical order by species, which put him near the end. Good. He would have time to watch, to learn, to prepare. Instructor Velthos stood in the center of the arena, his copper scales gleaming under the bright lights. Beside him floated the Mark 7 drone, its sensors blinking steadily. It looked almost peaceful, hovering there, but Do-hyun knew better. That machine had destroyed countless weapons fired at it by students far more talented than him. Welcome to the practical examination, Velthos announced, his voice booming through the arena. The rules are simple. Each student will demonstrate their weapon against a target drone. You will be judged on accuracy, power, and creativity. The top performers will advance to tactical command training. He paused, his yellow eyes scanning the waiting students. Let us begin. The first student was called forward, the giant insect creature that Do-hyun had noticed in class. Its name was Chidex, and it carried a weapon that looked like a tube of glowing green liquid. When it fired, a stream of acid shot out and melted through the target drone in seconds. The crowd cheered, and Chidex clicked its mandibles in satisfaction. Next came a student from a water world, a being that looked like an octopus wearing a mechanical suit. It had built a gun that fired compressed water at incredible speeds. The target drone's shields flickered and sparked, but held. Still, the judges seemed impressed. One by one, the students demonstrated their weapons. Plasma rifles, magnetic cannons, sonic disruptors, even a device that created small black holes for a fraction of a second. Each weapon was more advanced and more deadly than the last. The crowd grew more excited with each demonstration. Do-hyun watched and waited, his hand resting on the sling in his pocket. Kiran was called about halfway through. She had built a beautiful weapon, a rifle that fired frozen crystals that exploded on impact. Her aim was perfect, and the target drone shattered into pieces. The crowd gave her a standing ovation, and Do-hyun felt proud of his friend. When she returned to the waiting area, she sat down beside him and bumped her wing against his shoulder. "Your turn soon," she whispered. "I know. Are you scared?" "Yes." She clicked her beak softly. "Good. Fear keeps you sharp." The demonstrations continued. Gorval, the Threxian with the missile launcher, put on an especially impressive show. His weapon fired tiny missiles that tracked their target with perfect accuracy. Even when the drone tried to dodge, the missiles followed, eventually destroying it in a ball of fire. The crowd went wild. Finally, there was only one name left on the list. "Park Do-hyun of Earth," Velthos called out. "Please come forward." The arena went quiet. Students leaned forward in their seats, curious to see what the human had built. Most of them expected something pathetic, something to laugh at. Humans were known for being weak and primitive. This would be amusing. Do-hyun stood up and walked toward the center of the arena. His legs felt heavy, but he forced himself to keep moving. He could feel hundreds of eyes on him, waiting, judging. Velthos looked down at him with an expression that might have been pity. "Where is your weapon, human?" Do-hyun reached into his pocket and pulled out the sling. For a moment, there was silence. Then the laughter started. It began with a few students, then spread through the entire arena like a wave. Aliens of every species pointed and clicked and howled with amusement. Even some of the judges seemed to be suppressing smiles. The human had brought strain to a plasma fight. Do-hyun stood in the center of the arena, surrounded by laughter, and waited. Eventually the noise died down. Velthos raised one of his 4 hands for silence. "Is this a joke?" the instructor asked. "No, sir. That is rope." "It is a sling, sir. An ancient earth weapon." More laughter from the crowd, but Velthos silenced it with a look. He stepped closer to Do-hyun, his massive form casting a shadow over the small human. "I have been teaching at this academy for 40 cycles," Velthos said quietly. "I have seen 10,000 weapons. I have never seen this. Then this will be a new experience for both of us, sir." Something flickered in Velthos's yellow eyes. Respect? Curiosity? Do-hyun could not tell. The instructor stepped back and raised his hand. "Very well. Release the drone." But instead of activating one of the standard target drones, Velthos pressed a different button on his wrist. The Mark 7 combat drone rose up, the same one he had shown in class. The one that had never been destroyed. A murmur ran through the crowd. This was not normal. The combat drone was never used in student tests. It was too advanced, too dangerous. Some students actually looked worried. Do-hyun's heart hammered in his chest, but he did not let his fear show on his face. He had expected something like this. Velthos wanted to teach him a lesson, to show him that primitive weapons had no place in modern warfare. The drone shot upward and began to move in random patterns, its sensors scanning for threats. Its shields shimmered like a soap bubble, beautiful and deadly. Do-hyun loaded a steel ball bearing into the sling's pouch. "You have 1 minute," Velthos announced. "Begin." The crowd held its breath. Do-hyun began to spin the sling, and the ancient weapon sang through the air of the alien arena, carrying with it 10,000 years of human survival.